The views and opinions expressed on any program are those of the producers and/or the persons appearing on the program and do not necessarily reflect the views and opinions of FRC Media, Bristol Community College, or the City of Fall River.
Well, hello. Welcome to Spindle City Straight Talk. I'm Chip.
And I'm CJ.
And it is Wednesday.
May 1st. Happy May Day. May Day.
Big day in Russia, I think, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. That's They have all kinds of protests and everything. So
yeah, it's a big day in Russia. But again, we got millions of things here. We got all kinds of paper.
Just for an explanation for what happened on Monday. We thought we were taping the show, and we thought it was going out. We had no internet. We knew that right off the bat, so we couldn't send it out via YouTube. Sorry, YouTube viewers, but we had no internet. Then we found out that the show wasn't recording on the system, so we had no backup show whatsoever. Because normally our backup is the internet. We lose the file here, we used to have 3 backups. We used to have this, the live broadcast, and the YouTube. Now we don't. Now we've only got 2. And we lost both of them. So,
well, welcome to live TV, and one of the problems of taping, we can't even retape it. So it's like, but it was a good show. Take our word for it.
Take our word for it.
It
was a good show.
And we're going to talk about some of the same stuff we did talk about because, again, the saga of as the stomach turns, better known as Massachusetts politics and national politics, continues to turn. I don't know. Look. I got so many papers in front of me here. Just pick one.
I'm going to start out with the candidates for office.
Okay. We can do that first. I was gonna, but yeah,
that's our favorite stuff. You know.
Let's do that. All right.
9 people took out papers to run for city council, and Paul Coogan is running for mayor.
What a surprise. We knew that.
Isn't that surprising?
He said that almost immediately after the recall election was over.
Right.
So, that's not big news. Okay. City council hopefuls. We're at the Board of Elections at 9 a.m. Michelle Dion.
And Colin Dias.
You mean the one that was involved in that meeting that we had all kinds of controversy about?
Yep.
Yeah, and who finished 10th last time, and a member of the Redevelopment Authority said she'll resign should she win, even though it's not governed by city ordinance. And Colin Dias, they were there, and a check showed 3 incumbents took out nomination papers: Steve Long, Bradford Kilby, and Stephen, I don't know.
Steve Long, Steve Camara, and Brad Kilby.
And Brad Kilby, that's right. And, Steve Camara. Okay. Well, it's basically, Michelle Dion's a known quantity. She's on boards. Everybody knows where she stands. Colin Dias, obviously, he's been an activist. He's 18, but he's probably been more active in a political system, and whether you agree or disagree with him, you at least have to give him kudos for his involvement in the process.
Exactly.
So he's known, and of course we all know the records of Stephen Long, Bradford Kilby, and Stephen Obstructionist Camara. Oh, wait a minute, that's not his middle name. It's Leo O. Pelletier, so it's not Stephen O. for Obstructionist Camara. So those are the people that are so far running, but I've got a feeling.
Well, you also got taking another stab at Trot Lee.
Trot Lee, oh, that's right.
Trot Lee's going to try to run. We also have one of my brothers, a former correctional officer, a correctional officer. He's not former, he's a current correctional officer for the Massachusetts Department of Correction, Christopher Peckham.
And I got Ricky
Tith, who's the Cambodian liaison here in the city.
Yeah.
And
who else? We got Matthew Springer. And we have...
I've never heard of Matthew Springer at all in any.
Got to be related to, what's his name? He used to run all the time. Remember, David?
No.
No, he's not related to Dave Springer?
No. Dave Springer.
Okay. You make those assumptions because they're politically active and, You shouldn't make assumptions.
Oh, and now the
of
big
course,
one.
And of course, yeah, the biggie, the hugey, the eminent court case, Joshua Hetzler,
Yeah.
has pulled papers to run in spite of the charter because he feels the charter is discriminatory, and as do we.
And he's
We
gonna
think the
take-
entire charter is a disaster, so it's not like, yeah, and that one particular piece to single out a group is crazy, but you know, we give rights to everybody except people who work.
That's
for
it.
the living, you know, work for a living. So those are your so far, but you know, we're going to be talking about this. There's going to be a lot of papers pulled. I've got a feeling this is going to be a pretty crowded field, at least for maybe city council. Hopefully we'll have a lot of new blood with some new ideas, because most of those names, with the exception of maybe Springer, we've all seen before. We all kind of know where they stand, and
But that's the problem with our elections.
Yeah,
Okay.
of course.
People get shot down. Now, Michelle Dion, I can understand running because she came in 10th. Okay. It was only a couple of hundred votes, I think, between
Yep.
9th and 10th for her. So trying again, that makes sense. But I mean, Trot Lee has had how many bites at the apple already? 2.
yeah,
And
Lee.
both times he didn't even come in. You know.
And actually,
10th.
I think he did come in 10th the first time.
Did he?
I think 10th or 11th. He came in
yeah.
fairly close. The second
No,
time.
it had it. No, the first time it was 11th because Jazel became city councilor.
That's right. Well, yeah, and in his second run, I think he actually did worse than the first run.
Right.
So I mean, well, hey, look, you never know. I think that there are a lot of people who are looking at this election. If the mayor runs, I think that you're going to see a lot of people running who are going to run because they feel that a lot of people who are not satisfied with the way the city is being run, they're going to be able to get some votes. It's kind of like an anchor store. I think Paul Coogan and the people running against the mayor will be at the anchor store in this mall, the shopping mall of voters.
Right.
And I think a lot of people will look at this election as saying, look, there's going to be a lot of establishment votes coming out to get rid of, this current administration. Because I think it was pretty well defined in the recall election when almost 67% of the people voted, against the mayor, even though he got in on that technicality and it was a plurality. But I think you're going to see more people running, and I think these other people who didn't fare well maybe feel that, well, I didn't fare well in the council because a lot of the mayoral supporters came out and voted for the team. And maybe if I run now, and we're going to see a different electorate be represented here, and I may come in. And hopefully they'll run on their issues and on their platforms and to move the city in a different direction rather than the three-ring circus that we've had now. Because, we've got a man running for school committee who's prohibited to do so. Now, they prohibit a man who works for a living, and they single out that entire group of city employees, and we've talked about this before, and the same politicians and people who approve these ridiculous things and our charter, they turn around and what do? They hear about, they're gonna, they're renewing an effort to approve licenses for undocumented, undocumented, that's their euphemism for illegals. They're illegal. Illegal. And so you're gonna let illegal people vote, just like now we got Kamala Harris talking about, the Boston bomber should vote from prison. We'll get to that later. But this is what the legislator, Senator Brendan Creighton from Lynn, and this is a quote, and I mean, this just boggles my mind. This is a very simple issue with a common sense solution, unquote, said Creighton. Quote, there is simply no rational argument to ban undocumented immigrants from getting their driver's wallets. He doesn't even know their licenses. Now, tell me this guy isn't a yuppie out of touch with reality. To keep them, among them are our neighbors. They shouldn't be our neighbors. Our students, they shouldn't be our students. They are our workforce. They're not supposed to be working. Our friends and our constituents, they're not constituents, they can't vote. So everything he says is crap. Everything he says is crap. These people should not have come to this country. And anybody whose parents came here legally should be offended. The fact that Massachusetts, again, is going to do things like stop ICE agents from going into court to enforce the law, stop law enforcement officers from doing their job to protect people like who have come back to this country after being deported twice and were caught drunk and driving, and felons, and then they use these pathetic excuses. You know, they shouldn't have any. That's the problem. They've allowed this influx of people, and it's caused. Well, we went over the stats. How many hundreds of thousands of murders and rapes over the past 5 years?
What's interesting about this?
And this is just. I mean, it makes me crazy when I see these people, and then especially when they say these things like driver's wallets. I don't have a driver's wallet. Wait a minute. Let me check my. Oh wait, no.
That's because it was it's a translation. This was put out in a Portuguese.
Yeah, well,
press release.
I don't care what it was. There should be no driver's licenses. Okay.
Right.
Let me make my position. Because sometimes I may be a little vague. I doubt that, seriously.
I doubt that.
But there should be no driver's licenses for illegals. And I'm offended by the euphemisms. That's what they do in this country. They create a euphemism for something that isn't right, but they want to condone. Let's call illegals undocumented. Let's call children running around like wild Indians, saying they're troubled, or they have attention deficit disorder. It was amazing how 100 years ago they never had that diagnosis. And in the old days when half of these kids, some of them may have it, but most of them just need some discipline in their life. But they're not going to discipline because, did you read? The state of California is trying to outlaw suspending students.
Yeah.
You will no longer be able to suspend a student regardless of what they do. So, I mean, it's just, look, it's totally out of control.
Unless it's take a gun and shoot up the school.
These radical left wingers and radicalism is no good in any direction, but these leftists are crazy.
Well, here's one of the things about this proposed legislation. Because Massachusetts has two types of licenses, we have the standard license and we have the federal real ID license. They want to issue the standard licenses to the illegals because it's easier to issue it to them. And
well, you can't because a real ID requires proof of citizenship.
Right, but they want to issue the standard license.
Of course.
Right.
So let's make a license that they can get, so we can take. We can't make sure we're going to help people who work their whole life and can't afford their medications. I filed a bill 3 years ago in Boston and testified to it about helping people over 70 years old with their pharmaceutical costs if they're retirees on a fixed income, a lower income. And you know where that's gone? Absolutely nowhere. Absolutely nowhere.
Who was the state representative that proposed that for you? Was that Alan Sylvia?
Alan Sylvia,
Yeah,
and I still have the picture of Alan and I and Dave Machado's nephew, who's from the police association, Jimmy Machado. He showed up when I was up there to testify to also, put in his 2 cents, because he represents, the Massachusetts Police Association, and I was happy to see him there. We testified for quite a bit in front of a panel, and that was the last we ever heard of it. Because, why should we take care of people who actually contribute to this country? Why should we actually take care of people who worked for 30 or 40 years and are now living on 60% of the retirees in Fall River retirement system are living on less than $25,000 a year? But heaven forbid we take care of them. Let's give the undocumented licenses. Let's let the marathon bomber vote from prison. But this is Massachusetts. I'll tell you, I just wish I just wish the housing prices would go up in Fall River so I could get the hell out of here, get the hell out of the state. Because I'll tell you, I get nauseous every time I read this stuff. I do.
It gets to be a little weird. It does.
Weird? Well, boy, there's a euphemism.
Exactly. Well, here's the biggest euphemism of all. The newest proposal, now listen to what it's known as the Work and Family Mobility Act. For the law of mobility for work and family free translations.
That's like calling an illegal undocumented.
Right.
You know.
If approved, it would allow all qualified residents, regardless of their status, to receive a standard license in the system of 2 levels of the state legislation. Would not affect federal licenses in accordance with Real ID, which requires proof of citizenship. But this also provides privacy protections. It proposes that the individual's documents could only be released by subpoena or court order, and the licenses could not be used the basis for prosecution. In other words, for deportation. His answer at the end, Natalie Tracy, Executive Director of the Center for Brazilian Workers, says, Massachusetts is known as a progressive state. It is time to show that you are really progressive and approve this bill that will allow all immigrants in the state to drive.
Yeah, well, that's a nice generalization. So they all came in here illegally, and now we're going to just say, well, we're all immigrants. It doesn't make any difference. Well, everybody in this country is an immigrant, including the American Indian, by the way, because they came over the ice bridge when Asia was connected to North America. That's how they got here. So everybody that occupies this North America and South America came here from another place. So we're all immigrants. Some of us came over here legally. And now to give these people the same rights as everybody else who had to abide by the law just flies in the face of a nation. They always say, I love it when they say, we're a nation of laws. But we are a nation of laws that politicians choose to ignore when it does them gives them political traction. Because you know something? I'm going to join a parade. You know something? I object to calling somebody who murders somebody a murderer now. That is a negative connotation. I want to call them unsocialized.
That's it.
No more you can't call anybody a murderer already. He's not he didn't, you know, Tsarnaev didn't kill women and children in Boston. He's just unsocialized. Let's give him 6 driver's licenses and let him vote 4 times.
Why not?
Because we're a progressive state.
That's right.
The hell with the law. We'll just bend and manipulate the law till it suits our agenda. It's just like this morning before I left. I almost had to throw up my breakfast. I was watching a caption I was watching Hillary complaining about obstruction of justice. The woman that was smashing cell phones with hammers and wiped out all her emails and bleached everything. That's not obstruction of justice. If you did that or I did that and the police came in and you were destroying evidence, you'd still be doing time.
I mean,
But she can, I mean, that's what gets me. Look, don't be a hypocrite. You got away with it. Keep your mouth shut and go hide under a rock somewhere. Don't come on TV and start casting stones when you're in a glass house with glass panes about a 32nd of an inch thick. A stiff breeze would break that glass. So remember, you know, you are not without sin in this category, Hillary. We know that. It's been proven. You obstructed justice probably as much as Richard Nixon did. during the Watergate issues.
Hey, I am not a crook. Remember that.
No, what he should have said is, I'm the only one that got caught. They're all like me. See, if he lived today, we would not call him a crook. We couldn't, because he's like
like everyone else.
undocumented.
That's right.
We have to call him something else. You know, uncivilized, unsocialized. Like we can't have any of these things, because the snowflakes will melt if we use something with a negative connotation.
Well, he's a go along to get along type of guy. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
So but look, it's crazy, and we just in Massachusetts. Let's continue on. Middlesex and Suffolk DAs sue ICE. We talked about this on a show that never was. Yeah, these people don't want to allow ICE into the courtrooms. In the previous article, I don't know if it's in this one.
It is in this one as well.
She said that it would discourage these people from testifying and coming forward. Number one, everybody knows, and every law enforcement authority tells you, that illegals avoid law enforcement like the plague. They're not going to go to court unless they have to go to court. Ever. This is just another con to make you. Oh, look, they're not gonna come to court and testify because they're afraid the ICE agents. So we're going to sue to have the government again allow to prohibit law enforcement officers from enforcing the law.
Yeah, here's what they say. The lawsuit said ICE has decided to flout common law privilege against civil courthouse arrests and commandeer the state courts for federal immigration purposes. The complaint said non-citizen witnesses often do not appear for fear of arrest or deportation, and criminal defendants refuse to appear in court, choosing to default rather than risk detention and removal by ICE.
And they do that anyway. And I will let her come up. I'm a betting man. I will bet her that we can get statistics to prove that the majority, if not the vast majority of illegals never show up in court anyway, whether ICE is there or not. Because I know people who are in law enforcement, and they can't get these people anywhere near a courtroom or anywhere near. I know state police officers who stopped people that were illegals that, they can't get any information. They don't want to do it. They'll try to escape. They'll try to do anything because they're illegal. And even if they're not going to ask them, they're not, they do not do these things. This is just, again, Massachusetts BS. They're upset because they want to make this a sanctuary everything. Now we're even going to have courts of law being a sanctuary from the law. That is the epitome. That is the epitome of ridiculousness. We're going to allow a court of law with the maiden of justice blindfolded, and she is definitely blind. They're gonna sue in a court to try to prohibit law enforcement people from enforcing their law, from enforcing them. You can go into the only place I know that you can't go in if you get a warrant, including a courthouse or anything else, and they should be able to secure, if they need to secure warrants, let them get warrants, but whatever. The only place I know is a consulate, because that's foreign soil.
Right.
They have diplomatic immunity. The only time law enforcement, if they get a legal warrant, are prohibited from going into any place is a foreign country's consulate, because that technically is not American soil. It is another nation, and it has sovereignty, just as diplomats have diplomatic immunity, and they abuse that in many cases. So, but I mean, look, it just never ends. I mean, every time you turn around, because this is what they're doing. They're not fixing health care. They're not fixing anything, any problem that is facing the average American today. All they're doing is creating this all kinds of problems about, look at this, we're going to take care of you to get votes, and do everything to take away from the reality that they haven't done a damn thing about the real problems in the United States. All they want to talk about is things that will muddy the water for the next election. And you know something? I blame the people, because although they do say that a lot of these media outlets that are doing this are losing a lot of viewers, because people are frankly getting sick of it, listening to this and listening to her saying, I'm Jamaican, so, don't ask me if I smoke pot. I'm open to letting the marathon bomber vote from prison. And as I said on the previous show, I don't know if that was the one we didn't do, voting is, I think Bernie Sanders said it was an inalienable right, and inalienable means it cannot be removed, and that's not true. As I said on the show, the only inalienable rights I've ever seen referenced in anything that has to do with the United States is your inalienable right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. It doesn't say you have an inalienable right to vote. That is a privilege, as I said on the last show, that privilege that was secured for you by the blood of every American who died in every war since the Revolutionary War. It is a privilege. That's why you should vote.
It's the same thing with driver's licenses.
It is a privilege.
Right.
It is a privilege that is not about voting.
That's right.
It's about your ability under the Constitution and under our Declaration of Independence to shape your own government. That's what voting is. It is the ultimate expression of this democracy. And it is a privilege that was granted to you by our forefathers who picked up their muskets and died to create this nation. And to think some clown has not forfeited his right that blew up American women, children, and say that, you have a right, well, he's not ever going to have that right because he's been sentenced to death. These people that are never going to get out of jail, are sentenced to death, as far as I'm concerned, have forfeited that privilege, not that right. It is not inalienable.
Can you see the confusion and the headaches that would happen if we started sending absentee ballots into all the prisons?
Well, I know one thing, Hots would never get in. So I can tell you right now, Hots would never get in if they let everybody in a House of Correction vote. So, anybody that's tough on law enforcement, will never get a vote. And I mean, obviously, what agenda do they have?
Right.
Their agenda will be make my prison more like a country club and we'll vote for you. I don't know. Look, if somebody serves their time, comes out, well, I think that some states say, okay, even if you're a felon, if you served your time, you're back in society, you've been rehabilitated, although I object to the term rehabilitation, because you can't be rehabilitated if you never habilitated in the first place. You weren't socialized. So that's actually an oxymoron, rehabilitated. But the reality is that, look, if you want to give somebody the right that's done his time, okay. But now they're back in society. They're a member again of our society, and they have a right to shape the government of our society. But when you blow up half of Boston, and this pin brain, this amoeba brain, wants to side with Bernie Sanders, well, I'm sorry. You don't even understand your own nation. That's the problem. They don't understand the nation. And you see some of the few remaining Second World War vets sitting there getting a freedom ride somewhere to see a monument, and it just opens up, so many wounds with people when you see that, and you see these people trying to give away what was so difficult to attain for us, and not realize the privilege that you have in living in this nation. It's just sad. It's sad.
And it happens, the problem is we see it happen all the time, and we forget to value what we have.
That's right.
And that's what we need to do.
Well, we don't have, because the thing is, they don't think we've got it because of sacrifice. They think we got it because it was a reparation or an entitlement. That's the problem. The millennial generation has forgotten. They should be watching Saving Private Ryan for about 17 straight hours. And watch what those men who landed at D-Day had to do to protect us from speaking Deutsch right now.
I hear you. All right, well, it's been a great show. We'll see you on Friday. Have a great day and stay angry.
Let's